Ask that question again.
Yeah. Okay. What music would you choose to play every time you walk into a room?
So this is like our entrance music.
Yeah, exactly.
This is a good question.
I kind of like. I don't
This
endorse.
is kind of like wrestling, right?
Yeah,
this
exactly.
Is kind of like.
I don't endorse.
Not that I've
any-
ever watched wrestling. We can't endorse wrestling. I don't think. Are
I
we
like
allowed to
I
endorse
like
wrestling?
real sports,
I don't
not
know.
fake stuff.
Real sports.
If I
People
wanna
are
watch a
already
bunch of
watching.
guys
Like, is this the sermon review?
Yeah.
If I want to watch
Yeah,
a bunch
this
of
is
guys
a review.
pretend, I'll go watch Hamilton or something. I don't
Oh
know.
my gosh.
No,
Did
no.
you see that thing about the church that like made their own version of Hamilton?
Didn't they get
Oh
into some
my
pretty
gosh.
deep legal
like Disney
issue?
sued them or something.
Yeah.
Like they
Yeah.
changed all the lyrics
Man.
and stuff. Which,
Yeah.
granted, is fairly illegal. You're
Do
not supposed to
you-
do it, but yeah, they
You
fell
remember when
into
we did
deep
that
legal
with the
trouble.
Greatest Show?
I
We
wasn't
didn't
here
change
for
the
that.
lyrics, did we?
Yeah, we 1,000% did.
Oh,
The Greatest Sermon. Don't worry about it. Is it?
I think that was when I first arrived.
Yeah, probably.
I feel the obligation to let you guys know at this point that we are live.
Hey, oh.
So
Okay. Yeah, because you said you were going to tell us, and then you just didn't.
no, I
so.
didn't tell you. Yeah, we're actually.
Well, I asked the question, then he's
live.
like, "Wait a second, ask it again."
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I figured that was your way of saying
No,
we were
we're
live.
definitely live. People will be watching. So let that
So the part-
guide your answer as to what your entrance
I
music
don't
would
know
be.
the song, and I can't probably endorse it. But that song that's like, "Ba-da-ba-ba-da, ba-da-ba-ba-da," like I would
Isn't that the
absolutely.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine theme too?
Well, it is, but it's another song besides that, which I can't really endorse the show either. But I would absolutely choose that music to every
Oh.
single time I walk into a room. Just so quiet, like I'm in the library. No, I never go to a library. I'm in the
I
church
was
office.
gonna say that was a tough sell. Okay, fine. When I'm in Taco Bell.
Okay, fine. When I walk into Taco Bell to pick up my thing, and it's just like, that'd be sick.
It's kind of like it also reminds me of the John Cena one. Back to wrestling again. I suppose.
Oh, dude, yeah.
What's up with you and your wrestling
John
reference?
Cena.
Da, 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 da.
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy with like the trumpets.
Yeah.
Is that what? Is
So
that your?
good, dude.
Is
what
that my
your-
answer?
Yeah. Is that your answer?
Oh, I don't know.
Can't see me. My time is now.
Oh goodness, it's such a difficult question. I think it would just be a power move just to have like a royal fanfare.
Ooh,
Like,
such a
I-
British thing to say.
Yeah, like Queen can have one. The Queen can't have one. Not the King. The King can have one.
Train wreck.
Oh my gosh.
Oh man,
No. What's happening? Hey, y'all. For those of you that might be watching, say a prayer for James right now.
I apologize, England. I'm sorry. I get reprimanded at the next meeting.
The Queen.
The Queen.
MI6 is gonna call you, and they're like, "Dude, you need to knock it
God
off."
save our gracious Queen.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Royal fanfare. So you want like the
So
No, if it's good enough for the Queen, it's good enough for me.
that's fair. Yeah. I feel so. Okay. So my answer. I don't know that it would even be a song. There was a sound effect that we had during kids camp. When
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So like whenever the main character, I don't know if it's the main character, but he was the main
was the main-
antagonist.
yeah.
Maybe. He would come onto stage and there was a little sound effect. It was like a little jingle. It would go boom boom baka brrr. And it was
Oh,
like little
nice.
tom
Yeah,
drums.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I would want whenever I walked in anywhere. Just like open the door, boom boom taka brrr, and just
Ooh,
me
it's like
walk.
suspense.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I like
that is
that.
kind of. I would be like, "Oh my gosh."
Exactly right. Be like,
Yeah.
oh, he's here. What's gonna
Yeah,
happen?
people would look for sure.
Yeah.
People would be like, You get that noise. I don't know if that comes from anything, but I never
Home
fails.
Improvement.
Is it really?
It's Home Improvement. I couldn't tell you who does it,
dude.
but that's what it's from.
I forgot all about that show.
That's the Tim
Yeah,
Allen one?
Tim Allen one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Which Tim Allen is so funny.
The Buzz
He
Lightyear
is
one.
very funny.
He's so funny. Yeah,
That
exactly.
noise comes from that? Is that the dude that's over the other side of the fence?
I think it is actually. I think it's the neighbor.
Yeah, what's his name? Wilson? Is Wilson his name? I want to say Wilson, but
It's
then all
been
I
so
think
long
about is
since
the
I've-
volleyball.
Robert, can you get on that, please?
Yeah, Robert.
Can you be
this
looking up
is-
Home Improvement right now?
The fact that you're not already shows that you're not
And
paying
then-
attention.
I know.
Yeah, we miss Daniel, guys. Robert, we love you, but we miss Daniel. So when Daniel comes back,
Wow.
we should have Daniel at the table, and we should have Robert at the other table. And then,
Have them race so you can look it up faster. Oh my gosh, Robert, we love you, dude.
you
Like,
do. We should have said that first.
Holy cow.
We got a funny way of showing it, apparently. but
yeah, yeah. We love you. We're glad that you're here. Goodness. Okay,
We
well,
should
guys.
probably like review a sermon or something.
Yeah, I was just about to bring us
Yeah.
on track here.
Yeah.
So this weekend we had
J.O.'s
Pastor.
sermon. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, we had Pastor Kevin Thompson here with us, and man, I love that guy. He a great communicator.
He's funny.
Yes, he is. We were just talking about that. He's hilarious.
I'll tell you this as well. Like, he comes across as a super nice guy. Like, on stage, he comes across as a nice, like, you know, that southern kind of Arkansas guy. He is exactly that when you meet him as well,
okay.
like off the stage. Yeah, no,
Yeah, you had
it sounded like I was setting him up.
in the first half.
No, he
Yeah,
is
man.
absolutely that off stage as well.
Absolutely,
And
he
he's
is.
one of those just super nice, genuine guys who's like an honor to just be around and chat with. And I enjoyed just having him in the building. It was great.
He's pretty snacky, I guess. I caught the 11:30 service, and he admitted to like destroying Pastor Jeremy's snacks in between
In his
services.
office?
Yeah, in his office. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty great.
Well, I think they were probably left for him. So
Yeah,
I don't
so-
think Pastor Jeremy's grieving too
Oh,
hard.
sure.
Yeah, I'm glad he did.
I mean, I know. I certainly snack on those when I'm in there. So
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, for those of you that don't know, in Pastor Jeremy's office, he has like multiple little bowls of candy, and so I think is that what you're referring to, or is
yeah,
that
it
different
sweetens
snacks?
up the news he has to give me. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just messing.
It's just to keep the junior high team distracted while the
Yeah.
real work gets done, you know?
Oh my
While the
gosh.
real pastors work.
Your words. I'm kidding.
Gosh.
Did either of you catch the title of his sermon? Did he
It was called Choosing People Over Things.
choosing people over things? Because
Yep.
Yeah.
I didn't catch the
That makes
title,
a lot of sense.
but I did catch the scripture reference. So
Yeah.
Yeah, Choosing People Over Things, and he was in Luke 12:13 through 21.
yes,
Whoa, like a
Amigo.
computer.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's incredible.
I mean, it is right here, but
No, well, you. Yeah. Yeah. Just read it from a script. No, just kidding.
So one of the things, actually, before we dive in, that he had talked about that I want to highlight really quick is, before he even launched into his sermon, he was talking about just being like grateful about like what God is doing here in the church. And for somebody who's a guest speaker that's not here that often, and I know, I mean, I say that he's here more often than not, just because we love having him around. He's a great guy. But for somebody who's here not as often as like the three of us are, people that are full-time here doing this thing, to recognize that God is doing something really, really powerful here was so cool. I said that weird, powerful. But equally, one of the things that it made me think of was lately I was looking up and doing some research, but the part of the brain that is utilized to recall things that are associated with joy and excitement cannot be at the same time activated to be anxious or afraid. So, and linking that to being, to having a spirit of gratitude, like when you're actively being thankful for something, the same part of your brain that is active in recalling those good things cannot be at the same time activated to be anxious. You can find that, by the way, because I really went into it. There's a guy, his name is Dr. Alex Korb. He wrote a book called The Grateful Brain that came out in 2012. So for those of you that might be interested
He's not a
in
Christian
that,
guy?
I don't believe so.
Bro, tell me why science could not just accept that the Bible's right. And
I don't
God is
get it
real.
either.
But it's
all that
always
to
proven
say-
time and time again.
All that to say, I think that was really, really cool because I think he gets, I mean, Pastor Kevin talks about so many great, great themes in his message, and anxiety being one of those, which we'll get into later. But that was just one of the things that I was like, you know what? I remember hearing that. I want to go research it. So, I just figured I would throw that in there. So,
That's great.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah.
So be grateful about things in
Well,
your
it
life.
makes
Be
sense. I know that,
grateful,
like,
period.
Pastor Jeremy's talked before about just that idea of gratitude. And if you are
Like
focused
an
on
attitude
gratitude,
of it, maybe?
Yeah, having an attitude of gratitude.
Oh, he said it. That's bingo.
Yeah,
I'll preach.
No, it's classic pastor phrase. But I mean, if you're so focused on the things that you're thankful for, then it's impossible to be focused on the things that you're, missing or that you feel like you are owed that don't have. And it's cool that there's science behind it.
Yeah.
Like, genuinely, that's the way that the brain's created. Like that
Right.
that stuff, kind of like you said, like it just points towards God.
Yeah.
All of these things, these little intricacies, point towards an intelligent creator who knew what he was
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah.
Well,
it's
I'll even
mind-blowing, man.
I'll even get a little vulnerable too. So the other night I was worried about. For those of you that don't know, I don't even know that you guys know this. I'm a huge worrier. I always have been. I just, for whatever reason, I just tend to lean towards worrying about things.
Like a worry wart.
I really am. I have been for as long as I can remember.
You wee am a wee wart.
Oh gosh. And so I was laying in bed the other night, and I was like worrying about the things that I typically worry about, and I this study came to my mind, and I had in that moment thought to myself, okay, I can decide to continue worrying about this thing, or I can just really reframe my thought process here and just learn to be thankful about some of the things that maybe did happen in a said circumstance or said situation or whatever it was, right? And I found myself actually being able, and usually I keep myself up at night. Like I can't fall asleep because I'm just thinking about my day or thinking about whatever. But going through and reframing those circumstances in a way that I was able to actually be thankful, like, God, I'm thankful that I have friends in my life, or I'm thankful that I have, my wife, that she's able to support me and encourage me, or I'm thankful that I have friends like you guys to call me out on things that I'm like being a bonehead about or whatever. So it was just a really, really neat thing to see this in action, right?
Yeah.
So,
And I love the example he uses in the very beginning. He's like, how many of you guys were thankful that you did not win the lottery? And it's like, nobody's thankful that they didn't win the lottery. But when you reframe it and you see that like winning the lottery destroys your life pretty much, you're like, oh, I guess I could be thankful for that because
there was an old British sitcom that I remember vividly. It was called Only Fools and Horses, and it's Only Fools
my
and
memoir.
Horses. It's like an old
Sounds
phrase.
Sounds like autobiography.
It comes from this old phrase of, only fools and horses work. Like there's some phraseology. Either way, it's about these two wheeling and
It's a
dealing.
British thing. Just don't worry about it.
I can't explain this to you people.
You people.
Americans.
oof, just like gumballs, right?
Yeah, just like gumball machines. It was this old sitcom. I remember it. It's
American thing.
this wheeling dealing set of brothers that their whole goal in life was to become millionaires. And the older brother would always say, they would come up with all these antics to try and get rich. The older brother would always say, this time next year we'll be millionaires. Like that was their one goal. That's what they were focused on, pushing towards. And someone in the show at one point goes, money won't make you happy. And he goes, takes the sting out of being poor, though, doesn't it? Start with me. But we've had this conversation in our family of like, what would we do with that money? Like, it's a fun thing to think about. And then you even take it to the ridiculous lengths of going to Zillow and you start looking at properties, exotic, far away, and you start typing in, well, what if the lower limit was like $20 million? Like, what sort of house could I afford then? And you just look around. It's a fun thing to think about. And then you always come crashing down to earth. And the phrase normally gets said, well, money wouldn't make us happy. Yeah. And very often it always comes back with, well, I'd like the opportunity to see. And that's exactly what he said. So when he said that, I'm
if only he could test. I wish God would test me that way. I'm built different. Yeah.
Yeah, I could handle it.
Oh, gosh.
But yeah. So this made me think, like, genuine question.
Yeah.
And don't give me no Bible school answer here.
I'll try. No promises.
Genuinely, like, yes, you're gonna tithe. Yes, you're gonna do all that.
Yep.
What's the first thing you do having won? What did he say? Was it for like $4 million or whatever?
I
think he said.
Was.
Well, I remember him saying it was like power million, but the amount was like $1 billion. So I don't know what the take home is.
So say you get taxed on like 60% of that. Sure. So say you're walking home with $400 million, right?
Sure. Okay.
What you doing with it?
Who wants to go first? I already know my answer because I think
Finally
about
buying
it
Bitcoin.
often.
No, I'm just kidding.
Finally buying Bitcoin.
No, in all seriousness, actually, I would take my wife. We would travel. My wife would travel. My wife actually really likes.
And then what?
This does.
You have 400 million travel, and then what do you do after that?
We travel $400 million worth, bro. Like we do everything.
Okay.
No, we'd probably travel with my wife. She actually, this is crazy. I've never thought of this before. It just came to me right now. She watches a whole lot of YouTube of this couple who has their own boat and they like sail around and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
It'd be trippy to like.
No, I watch
for my
those.
wife.
I watch those guys.
Do you actually?
Which ones are? There's a few of them. Is it Sailing La Vagabond?
It is.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not on that side of YouTube.
You
Guys.
don't. Okay.
So
You know what I'm talking about,
Basically,
right?
them and their family own a catamaran, and
it's
all they
dope.
do, it's a legit boat. Like it's cool. Like I don't even know if boat's the right term.
It's like them and two kids.
Okay.
Yeah. And literally, they just sail around. They've been in the videos I've watched. They were in the Caribbean or whatever, but they literally just sail around and just
And
have a
vlog
blast
the whole thing. And they've been doing it for years. Like they have kids, but they started like even before I think they had any kids, or maybe they had one. But
Yeah, I think so.
It's crazy. So
I think
anyways,
they got a new one about a year ago.
So just
getting into the details.
got a new one. Anyways, so
is so
that's
much more
a hilarious
A new
connection
boat,
that you
not
know
a
what
new
I'm talking
kid.
about. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. No, I watch a bunch of other people. You thought I meant kid, right?
Dude, I don't know. Maybe it's the afternoon energy we're bringing to this podcast, but it's so much more different. It's so much
different.
More different than usual.
Yeah, I
but,
don't know, man.
oh gosh.
I know.
No, I
I
would
watch a bunch
definitely
of travel YouTubers.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of them out there. Just watching them like go around. I would probably travel too with a little bit.
Yeah.
First class. Like there's
100%.
There's an airline that has a suite called the Residence. And I'm pretty sure it's like Emirates or something. They have it on like an A380, but it's basically a mini apartment. So you just have a whole little
a plane?
hotel room to yourself in a plane. Yep, your own bathroom, your own.
What?
And you go back towards the end. Look this up. The Residence is what it's called. I
Robert,
think
look this up.
Yeah.
Is that a TS or a CE?
What was the last thing we asked you to
Is
look
that-
up?
I don't even know.
Is that a CE or a TS residence?
What?
It's probably CE. Don't worry about it.
He was
It's
asking
What are
about the
you talking
spelling
it's
of
a
the airline.
stupid question.
Oh, I don't know how to spell residence, but anyway, that's the name of the product that they offer, and it's you go back and it's got like a double bed in the back of the.
Talk
you
about
figure out
leg
which
room.
airline it is.
What?
I'm working on it.
Oh, he's working on
He's
it. Okay.
he's
I don't
working
have my computer, so it's just like I have to
Oh,
type
it's
on
just
my
your
phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, blame your tools. That's right. All that to say, I would fly that, and that's 25,000 there, right out the window.
Oh yeah, dude.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Wow.
travel,
Well,
travel.
that's the main thing I would do. I mean, I could think of
Yeah.
more, but
what else
I don't
would you
know.
do? Travel? That's it.
I don't think that would be it. I would want to. I mean, I said no Bible school answers. I obviously tithe. I would want to give. I would want to make sure that's all taken care of and buttoned up
You're
square away.
breaking your own rule.
I know, but I think I would also want to do. I don't know.
very
I'd want to do
biblical.
something special for friends and family, like not just
yeah.
like give them a bunch of money, but like actually, I don't know, do something special. I don't know what
Yeah.
that would look like, but
Throw a
I
big
don't
party.
yeah, something. Like, I've
Yeah,
always
that's a
thought like
good
what-
idea too.
my father-in-law talked about this occasionally. Like I make it sound like all I ever talk about is what would happen if we win $400 million.
Yeah.
But one thing that we talked about was like, what if you did like this huge party? You invited like a bunch of your friends and your family, and then on the way in, you talked about like doing a party game, and you just had them write down like their biggest need, like the thing they want the most in the world right now. Had them write it down, and then you just had a team of people working behind the scenes to go out and buy the stuff
Oh, that'd be
that they're
dope.
talking about, and then just
Give it to him.
give it to them like
Dude.
right then and there.
That could be cool.
If I ever go to your house now, I know I'm gonna put like I'm gonna put something
If I
real
ever get
nice on
invited to
there.
a party,
I
for
don't know
kids-
what makes you think you'd be invited, so
Oh, burn.
I'm kidding.
Just
Of
finding out right now, I
course
don't
you'd
make the
be
friends and
invited.
family category. So
Right.
Yeah.
I'm a
Other-
coworker, I guess. I'm not an acquaintance, right? Please don't tell me I'm an acquaintance.
How low can we go?
Crushing.
You're all you're family. Get out of here.
Aw.
You're both.
Ah, shucks. Thanks, sport.
I don't. So, is it that it? That's all you would do? You have 400 million. That's all you would do.
I mean, there's a list, but we've only got so long. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
you know, yeah, there'd be things. It would be nice to imagine. Like, there's times where I'm like editing a video or whatever. I'm like, oh man, I wish I had a better camera, a more powerful computer.
Sure. Yeah.
Not being able to have to worry about how I'm gonna get that would be nice.
Yeah.
Things
fair.
like that. But
Yeah.
yeah.
So I think about this often, and this is why. So when I was little, I grew up here in Modesto, so we've seen kind of Modesto go through a lot of like changes as far as like structures and buildings and fields turning into like housing complexes and stuff, which is
Yeah,
kinda
or
we're seeing-
churches.
or churches. Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, we're seeing that now too. But
So
my
you
dad,
buy Modesto.
what's that?
You buy Modesto is what
That
I'm
would be
hearing.
crazy.
Well, not necessarily, but what I'm getting at is that as my dad and I would drive by these fields that were like, hey, for sale, my dad would always ask me, what would you do with this? Like, if you were to buy this piece of property, what would you do with it? He would always ask me that. And so I play this game quite often in my head now, just
Yeah.
from a young kid growing up, right? And so what I would do if I won the lottery is I would pay off all of my family's and friends' houses so that they could either rent that out or live in it for the rest of their life without having mortgage payments.
Yeah.
I'd also pay off all of cars, so like cars that we own, friends'
Yeah.
cars that we own, and then
Get rid
what
of
I
debt.
would do.
That's a good Dave Ramsey answer. Yeah.
Yeah, and then what I would do is that I would go and buy a house with land on it, and then I would just rent out all of the properties that I own and just do that. I would
Oh,
not
Monopoly
work.
style.
I
love
wouldn't
that.
work, and I would just like go do what I wanted to do for
Yeah.
free. Like I would go and play music, or
Yeah.
I don't know, like do missions work or like
Yeah.
charity stuff. I know that sounds like it's
Pass go. Collect
No,
$200.
that's
what I'm
literally.
saying.
Yeah, you play Monopoly. What happens if I land on your spot? Just, no, I'm just kidding.
I just paid off
You
your
rent
house,
one of his
bro. What
properties?
do you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
That's if he's classed as friends or family.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I can't do two of those blows, guys. You just don't tell me. Just don't tell me what I am. Don't tell me what I mean to
Oh
you.
my gosh.
Well,
Well,
that's a fun route to go down, like to
Yes.
think about. But I think to bring us back to the fact that we're
Yeah.
talking about a sermon here.
Yeah.
What Kevin ends up driving towards is just this idea of if that becomes all you're pining after, and it
Sure.
becomes literally what's at the forefront of your mind, and it stops you from
Yeah.
doing other things. But I thought it was a great way to open it, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how many other people leave a comment or let us know
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
that's
Text
you.
James at Tuesday. I'm just kidding.
We're not going to play that game again, man.
I know I did it last week with the email address. Sorry about that again.
No, it's all good. But yeah, seriously, let us know if you
Yeah.
play that game and what you would do, because it's
Yeah.
something that I think we all do and think about.
I was encouraged that most of our answers had to do with like others, like we want to bring other people along in the blessing. And like I know one of the things he talks about is like Genesis 12, Abraham's calling, God tells Abraham, hey, I'm going to bless you specifically and your family so that you may be a blessing to others.
I think you have it open. Do you want to read it?
I have Genesis 3 open because
Oh,
I
I'm
was really
sorry.
excited to talk about how the enemy works because I have that guy.
We can still get
have
into
that
it.
guy locked in.
Yeah, dude.
We'll
Save
get to
that.
it in a second.
Yeah.
I'll save it. But I could go to, could find it in Genesis 12. Here we go.
Sorry, I did
so
kinda put
easy.
you on
I
the
got you right now.
spot. Oh, okay, good. Sorry.
Thank goodness it was right in the top of it. Yeah, here we go. Genesis 12, verse 1. Now the Lord said to Abram, go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you. And I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse. And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed.
Mm,
So good.
it's good stuff, man.
There's a saying. It says "blessed to be a blessing." I'm sure you guys have heard that before.
Yeah.
I've also heard
A
this
shirt
too,
from
and it was
Forever
a good-
21 with it on it. No, I'm just
What's
kidding.
that?
So I have a shirt from Forever 21 with it on there.
Oh gosh, I want to see it sounds like it, or like a pillow from Hobby Lobby or something.
I was about to say that is
Hobby
on
Lobby.
someone's
That's
wall
what I
somewhere
should've
from
said.
Hobby
Yeah.
Lobby.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
but there's also another thing that I've heard though too, where like they say that if like God gives you a blessing in your hands and you're holding onto it so tightly, you physically can't receive anything in this posture.
Oh, that's good.
And so like to receive something else, you have to let go.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to lead open-handedly. I know that that's another phrase, but being blessed so that you can bless other people.
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah. Well, I think there's an important lesson in the idea of the fact that there's blessing in generosity. And this is clear all throughout Scripture, I think, that there seems to be, when you give, when you're open-handed with what you have,
Yeah.
there's blessing that comes from that.
sure.
Malachi 3:10 talks about that. God says to test him in this area. If we give,
Yeah.
that he will see if I won't throw open the gates of heaven and blessing you.
Sure.
Now, where we've messed that up as a people, and where we've messed that up as a society and as
Ooh,
a
I think
group
I know
of
where
people,
this is going.
Yeah, and I
Where
have a really
we've-
interesting follow-up.
entirely messed this up
Yeah.
is that we have then turned around people who are peddling this heresy all over
Yeah.
the Christian circles are saying that if you give, then you will receive monetarily. Like if you give monetarily, you will receive monetarily.
Maybe can I clarify too?
Please.
It may not be monetarily, but it could be materialistically.
Yes.
Because it may not just be money. Like God is going to give you something material based
Right.
as a return for what you give.
Like he's a
Absolutely.
bank. Like he's a bank.
Yeah.
Yeah,
or
like,
a
you know,
stockbroker or something.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
is absolutely how scams work. There are scams out
totally.
there saying if you just give this amount, then more will be applied to you.
Right.
Now,
Dude, we almost got Facebook Marketplace scammed like that. My wife and I.
totally, it's out there. Yeah, it's
Oh,
a scam. And so if you're hearing that from a preacher or a church, I'll just go ahead and tell you that's a scam. That is not
Right.
right. That is
not biblical.
absolutely heretical. What the Bible says is that there is a blessing that comes from it. Now, the blessing might not always look like what
Yeah.
we would most want out of ourselves for it to look like.
Yeah.
For example, you know, it's not always going to be money back. It's not always going to be in the way that we think it is. Sometimes it comes in the change of attitude or a change of
Yeah.
spirit, whereby when we give and we're generous and we're open-handed, that something loosens in our hearts, and that's the blessing that we receive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, walking in freedom from
Totally.
being ruled by your possessions. Yeah.
100%. And so I think there's absolutely blessing that comes from giving.
One of the things I do want to get into is sorry, I'm drinking, dude. I don't know what it is. I'm drinking this water, but it's almost making my throat feel like there's more stuff in it. I don't know what's
Oh,
going
that's
on.
water? I
Yeah,
thought it was
it's-
coffee. You don't drink coffee.
I don't drink coffee.
What is it, my first
I
day
probably
alive?
shouldn't say that in
Jeez,
a
what-
church.
He's a tea
What the
guy.
heck?
I will only drink coffee.
Yeah.
And then he will only drink tea. And I'm from England. You
Yeah.
think I would drink tea? I don't.
Wow.
Well, what I was gonna say was I want to get into the origin, or not the origin text, but like the text for.
Yeah, I have a
sermon.
really interesting tie. If you give me 1 second
Yeah,
to
no,
find
please, yeah, absolutely, go for it.
the
Go for
thing
it.
I'll say is I think it's so interesting that
I just love that we haven't even got anywhere close to the text that he used.
Yeah.
Well,
we're still in the intro up
Yeah,
here.
as you're looking that up. So what I was gonna say is for those of you that might have been following along with sermon notes this weekend, you would have noticed that Pastor Kevin didn't have any like points to follow. So hence the nature of this podcast today is going to be very much like talking in themes and kind of generalities, if you will. Just with that said, notice that if we really don't stick to like anything pertaining to this, we'll try our best to keep coming back to it. But all that to say, if you have specific questions about something that might have resonated with you or stuck out to you, or that you were like, I have, highlighted something for yourself, please throw a comment so that we can talk about it. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, the tithe that popped into my head as you were talking about Malachi 3:10.
Yeah.
Is that he's talking about, so this is how it reads, bring the full tithe into the storehouse,
Yep.
right.
that there may be food in my house. And I just love how like Jesus in Luke 12 is going to share a parable about a guy bringing all of his stuff into his storehouses, and how that plays out very differently than when you bring it into the Lord's house and like when you dedicate it to the Lord. And I
great.
thought
That's
it was
a
like
good
a really
parallel.
interesting like parallel as far as like your possessions, like which barn are you putting it in or something like that. I don't know.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that just popped into my head. Thank you, Spirit. But
Oh, it also reminds me
Yeah.
of another thing too. So when it says something about the laborers labor in vain, help me out, guys.
oh my goodness, isn't it something to do with like if the Lord, something
If
about the
Lord
foundation
doesn't-
of the house,
if
or
the
something
Lord
like
doesn't build the house, then the laborers labor in vain.
that? Something like that. Yeah.
And so I think too, when he says, "I'll put it into my storehouse," back in the day, I would have to imagine that it was a storehouse that he probably would have had to have built himself.
I can tell you that Psalm 127.
My guy,
Dude, Psalm
what's it
Unless the
say?
Lord builds the house, its builders labor in vain. I think it's the NIV. But
That's okay. Well, all that to say that.
What's the message? No, I was kidding.
Anyhow, no,
if you build
that's
it
what it made
without
me.
God, then it's useless. That's what the message says.
That's what it made me think of, is that scripture when it talks about, like, as you're saying, the difference of bringing it into something that's man-made versus bringing it into something that was built for the glory of God.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, the text that we're going to be speaking out of, or that Pastor Kevin spoke out of, was Luke chapter 12, verses 13 through 21. It says the parable of the rich fool. So I'll read it for you guys right now. It says, "Someone in the crowd said to him, 'Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me.' But he said to him," and this is Jesus, "but Jesus said to him, 'Man, who made me judge or arbiter over you?' And he said to them, 'Take care and be on your guard against all covetousness.'" Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, point for me.
Also translated as greed, I think, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm reading out of the ESV.
Sure.
It says, "For one's life does not consist of the abundance of his possessions." And he told them a parable, saying this: "The land of a rich man produced plentifully. And he thought to himself, 'What shall I do? For I have nowhere to store my crops,'" as you were just saying, Nathaniel, right? "And he said, 'I will do this. I will tear down my barns and build larger ones, and there I will store all of my grain and my goods. And I will say to my soul, Soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, drink, be merry.' But God said to him, 'Fool, this night your soul is required of you, and the things you have prepared, whose will they be? So is the one who lays up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God.'"
Initial thoughts, dude. I love
Yeah.
God and Jesus are such savages in the way that they reply. Like Jesus responds, "Man, who made me a judge?" Like that's the way I hear him saying that. He's like, "Come on, man." And then God later just tells the dude, "Fool."
Yeah.
And so like I mean they call out, Jesus and God and the Holy Spirit have never been afraid to call out people on their games that they play, right? So
This reminds me. My father, my dad, he's from Mexico, and out there he has a couple of friends that own like huge plots of land, like ranches, like very very big ranches out there. And so his friend divided his ranch with his brother, and they were arguing much like these guys were about like, hey, have him to split the thing. So they were splitting the property down the middle. And the other brother was arguing that the fence line was too far over and that he was gypping him for like property or whatever. And so my dad and his friend were out walking his part of the property. And as my dad was giving him all this advice about like, well, you could, take him to court and then we could sue and we could do all this stuff. And he was like, well, you could do that, or you could, he was talking him through it. As my dad is going on and on and on, his friend reaches down and picks up a rock from the grass. And he's telling my dad, he goes, "Hey, when I die, do you think I can take this one with me?" And my dad caught it and was like, "Yeah, you're right. You can't." And he goes, "I don't care."
mm-hmm.
He's like, "I'm just going to push the fence line and give it to my brother. What's 5 feet?" It's like, when I die, I'm not taking any of this with me. What's the point? And I think the same is true here, right? What's the point? That you're going to be storing up, and you're going to be taking care. I mean, I'm not arguing that it's not good to take care of your family. I'm not arguing that you shouldn't do those things. But when it becomes the sole focus, and I think this is part of the point that Pastor Kevin is getting into, right? When you, we were kind of chatting about it before we started, right? The difference between selfishness and selflessness. When you're greed, and greed is a selfish thing, when it focuses on that, it takes you away from the selflessness that God calls you to. So I thought that was a really, really interesting thing. Just a life experience that I had that I was like, whoa, memory unlocked,
Yeah, I think that's great.
That's crazy.
I think a couple of things that I observe out of that passage is that, first of all, Jesus is talking about some grand truths. He's teaching. He's in the middle of teaching, and this dude stands up asking Jesus to help settle a financial
that's
dispute.
cool, but what about my
Yeah,
brother?
it's like, yeah, cool, but here's my problem. Can you help fix it?
very real
so
issue.
I just, I love that. I like Jesus' response there too. Of like, what do you want me to? It's entirely focused on the wrong thing, and I always come back to one of my favorite kind of accounts in the New Testament is Mary and Martha, and Martha's all annoyed because she feels like she's owed help, and she's like, Jesus, are you going to help settle this dispute? And it's the same kind of thing that's going on here, and Jesus responds, again by saying, this isn't the issue at play. And that's effectively what he does here too, is this is not the issue that's at play. This is not really what's going on. Like, who am I, a judge or an arbitrator over every one of your little problems? Like, no. And he goes after the heart. He goes after what's under it. Because the bottom line is, this guy's covetous heart is going to be far more problematic for him than whether he wins or loses this dispute.
Sure.
And so I just love that there's always a heart issue.
Yeah.
And Jesus goes straight for it. I love it.
It also reminded me of Matthew chapter 6, and I'll read it to you right now. And you're going to know it the second I start reading it. It says, "Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But instead, lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also."
Yeah.
It lends a really interesting question, right? For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Viewer, where's your heart? What are some of the things that you treasure the most?
Yeah.
And I think if you can be honest with yourself when asking that question, it'll reveal a lot to you about where your loyalties really lie. Do they lie in your job that provide for you? And Pastor Kevin, I'm actually going to bring it up again because it was so good. Oh gosh, where is it? The way to spiral into anxiety is what he says, or worry, is to buy the lie that that the thing that stands between you and a fulfilled life is a paycheck.
Yeah.
Is it your job that is where your treasure is? Is it your kids? Is it your possessions? Is it your car? Is it your house? What is it? Because if it's not Christ, I'll tell you, it's not going to last.
Yeah.
Never does.
Yeah.
Well, I think the places that are most obvious to check of the things that we prize most, if our treasure is, where your treasure is, your heart will be also. Where's your heart at? I think the two places that are the first you check is your calendar, where you spend your time.
Oh, interesting.
And your checkbook.
Okay.
No one spends checks anymore. I've never.
Yep.
I don't remember the last time I wrote a check.
Your calendar and your banking app.
Yeah, your bank statement.
Yeah.
There you go. Your calendar and your bank statement.
Yep.
What do those reflect? Because I was encouraged too. Like we all talked about, okay, 400 million. We're gonna give people some stuff. Like that's what we talked about, right? We're gonna give. And I think your bank account will reflect where your priorities are as far as your money goes, and then your calendar reflect where your priorities are as far as your time goes. And you'll see, okay, my time is going towards things that
Instagram.
are right. Doom scrolling.
Yeah.
Yep.
Use your term, right?
Yep.
Doom scrolling Instagram, or
Yep.
we start to realize real quick that actually, oh man, we might not be in good shape here.
Yeah.
And so, are you filling your time? And this whole message is driving to the idea of community.
Yeah.
Is there somewhere on your calendar where community is taking place? Are you setting
that's
aside
right.
time in your calendar
Sure.
to be with other people who believe the same thing? They're going to call you out on your mess. They're going to be there for you when As JT said this last weekend, like when the wheels fall off of the wagon, do you have your people ready for you? And are you being that for them? If that's not in your calendar, then man, you don't have a heart for community then at this point. You gotta get that stuff calendared out.
Yeah.
Your bank statement, you know, if you've got thousands of dollars worth of charges to the Apple Store, but you
guilty.
haven't given to what God is doing or through a church, whatever church family you're a part of, whether it's this one or wherever you're at. If your bank statement doesn't reflect that, then man, where's your heart at?
Yeah.
1 Timothy 6:10 says, "For the love of money is the root of all evil." The love of money, not money. The love of money. Just want to be very clear there.
Yep.
For the love of money is the root of all evil, which while some coveted after, they have erred from the faith. Please don't miss that. This is such a sharp, sharp word. They have erred from the faith because of their love of money and pierced themselves through with many sorrows.
Mm-hmm.
That is so sad. I was looking that up today because I was just, in preparing for the podcast and just doing that. This verse came to mind, and everybody knows, for the love of money is the root of all evil, and that's the nice like catchphrase. But really, the full thing, they have ran themselves through with many sorrows.
Yeah.
How sad is that?
Yeah.
And I don't know. Go ahead.
Well, Jude, it goes back to your point about, when you're focused on money, when you're focused on things that are not, good and pure and lovely, things that are not of God, when you're focused on those things, that's where anxiety starts to come in and worries and strife and trouble. And so, the verbiage is strong.
Yeah.
Run yourself through with many sorrows. Like that's very stark phrasing, but I totally see how that's
I think
true.
it lends to the seriousness of it, right?
That's right.
Like, you have to understand the severity of what happens when you give yourself over to the love of money. When you, I honestly, I read this way too. Like, when you create an idol of money, it will literally, it'll kill you.
Yeah.
It'll run you through with so many things that you don't need to be burdened with.
Because you're chasing after the heartbreak of something not fulfilling the hole that you have that the Lord should be in.
Right.
Because you're just chasing something, and then you get it, and then it's heartbreak. And then you chase something else, and you get it, and it's heartbreak because it's not going to fulfill what you are trying to have it do.
It becomes an addiction.
Yeah.
You become addicted to your lifestyle. You become addicted to what it does for you. And as with all addictions, you will start to compromise. You'll compromise things to make it happen. You'll compromise your integrity to get it. You'll compromise your morals to get it. You'll compromise what you believe about the Bible to get it. You'll compromise every part of your life in order to get what you have become addicted to, which for a lot of people, and this is going to be, I'm going to hit myself with this one, is comfortability.
Hold on.
People have become addicted to being comfortable.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And once you become addicted to be comfortable, you are going to compromise everything in order to make that happen to be comfortable.
Yeah.
And so it seems a little scary to step out and be a part of a community. It seems a little scary to start giving back to God through an organization or through a church.
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable to do that. And yet we've become addicted to this idea of comfort. And so we'll compromise those things in order to be comfortable.
Dude, that's such an interesting thing that you said. It just made me think, like, I can name 5 people that I know that would say, like, I had a bad day, so I went to the mall and bought a shirt or bought some shoes or bought a thing. I never thought about it like that.
Dude, I can open up my Amazon right now and show you a purchase I made in a week moment.
Oh, okay.
I don't need it. I don't need it.
Was it that cool? Was it that cool camera?
Yeah.
That thing is so sick, dude.
Don't tell my wife. It was definitely the camera.
Does your wife listens to this? I don't know.
I know she does. I'm going to be in trouble. No, I did not buy it, sweetie. I did not buy a camera. I promise.
Full disclosure.
I can show you what it was.
I'm actually kind of curious now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was a
I just
week.
show you like a ton of Taco Bell.
Yeah.
It was a weak moment, and I've been looking at it for a while, and I'm like, I finally decided. It was it's a little microphone kit for my camera.
The thing that I just used like a little while ago.
the thing I shot the.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's been useful. It's proven its use. I
Sure,
think.
sure. But that's
But
the
I
trap.
bought that from a moment of just being overwhelmed with life a little bit.
Sure.
Being in a spot where I'm like, man, gosh, everything's kind of piling on top.
Yeah.
And I just went to Amazon. And, you know, I
How
would,
yeah. So all that to say, it's an interesting thing. I was gonna share.
Next time, can you buy me a microphone that looks like your guys's?
nope. Now, granted, it's not like I'm going to sell myself completely up the river and say that's the only reason I bought that. There's a lot of research that went into
course.
which one I was
Yeah,
going to buy.
sure.
You're a
and
smart shopper.
Making sure that there was some use for it, you
Yeah.
know, that was more than just my own personal use. Like, it's going
Yeah.
to be useful here around the church. So all that to say, it wasn't purely that, but it was definitely in a moment where I pulled the trigger at a moment
Yeah.
where I knew I was overwhelmed and I knew that I wasn't feeling on top of a few different areas
Sure.
of life. And so, to your point, I went and
Yeah.
made a purchase.
I
Yeah,
need
because
to
you can
control
rationalize it
Yeah.
an infinite number of ways. You can rationalize anything.
That's how I ended up with our second dog. I was gonna say
Uh-oh.
that was my last impulse thing. I love the dog. He's very cute. But that's how I was like, you know what? I want another dog, and so then we ended up pulling the trigger on that. So that's why I was
love
laughing
it.
because he's definitely
love it.
he's definitely not useful in any way except that he's cute. Well, you were just talking about how
Not
useful it is your
useful?
purchase was. Oh, he's
Yeah, no,
100%.
that's fair. He's not pulling his own
100%
weight.
not useful. He doesn't.
not working for his
Yeah,
food.
Honestly, like Erica and I, we have a really funny thing. Like when we get home, it'll be the evening we're making dinner or doing dishes or whatever, and he'll just be sitting there, super cute, like just staring at us, and both she and I will look at each other, and then we'll look at him and we're like, "Bro, can you like pull your weight or something?" Like, can you go,
Yeah,
like,
can you pitch in a little bit?
yeah,
Yeah, no, we do that with our 8-month-old.
Yeah,
We're like, homie, it's time.
yeah.
go
Like
get a job.
you have been.
As soon as you can stand, you can go to the store.
You've been on the
I
earth
was
for
gonna say,
8
yeah.
months, my guy. What you
Yeah.
been doing?
Yeah,
You wanna know
most
how many-
animals can like do their whole thing by now, dude.
Hey, you know how many diapers I've changed?
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh! All that to say, spending.
Oh yeah,
Dude,
Spending
it's
can be an
advice.
addiction, and I never thought about it like that until you just mentioned it. Like how true that is, and even for myself, and outside of the dog, because that's kind of funny. I also did make another impulse purchase, and it was like super late night. We were actually last year heading into Christmas season,
Yeah.
and I was like, you know what? I've seen a lot of other vocalists and other like people in the Christian music industry use this vocal nebulizer thing.
Oh, yeah.
And I bought it, and Erica woke up the next morning and she was like, "What is this?" And I was like,
nebulizer.
yeah. I was like, "It's a vocal nebulizer. I really need one." And she's like, "You already have one." And I was like, "Well, it's too late. It's shipped already. Like, I don't know what you want me to do." And so, and she was like, "That's the last thing that you're buying this year."
Bro.
So that was our that was
When
my
she
impulse.
finds out
You're
that you
bald,
can just
dog.
return it, man, that's
Yeah,
I
game
know.
over.
Yeah, well, it's not very sanitary anymore, James.
that's true, I
Yeah, I
guess.
gotta keep it. So, but anyway, all that to say, it was one of those things that in a weak
Yeah.
moment, I was like, you know what? And especially, I mean, Christmas season around here is crazy,
Totally.
both fun and really busy and stressful sometimes. And I'm sure I don't have to tell anybody else that. But it was one of those moments I was like, you know what? I need this to help sustain me, to sustain my vocal performance or whatever it is that I
Yeah.
felt like I needed it for. And has it been helpful? Absolutely, it has. But I think really to bring it all the way around in those moments, really thinking about instead of like, what thing can I buy to help sustain me or to help me do what I need to do? How am I relying on God to sustain me in those same ways? How am I relying on Him to send me through the season of really like busyness or like stress or
Totally.
whatever it is, right?
So my wife helps keep me accountable in this because her default, my default generally is to go and buy something off of Amazon, right? Her default is to buy something for someone else.
Ooh, that's also a trap.
And so her thing is like she'll and I guess I'm using this to illustrate the fact that she's just hyper generous.
I was just gonna say,
And
like, how do
repair
I
the
get
fact-
on this
Oh.
list?
Repair the fact
Interesting.
that I bought the microphones.
Well
But
done.
no, she had texted me. Oh goodness, I guess it was a few months ago. But there's a friend of hers that she just had on her mind, and so we were out somewhere, and she saw. I think it was a candle or something. She saw this candle, and she was like, who'd really like that is this person, and so she bought it right
That's
there
awesome.
with that person in mind.
Yeah.
And so here's me over here like impulse Amazon purchases. My wife impulse buys for other people.
Yeah, how do
Yeah.
I make that
Which
list?
Yeah.
Is there a list
Friends
to
and
get on?
family list, dog.
Yeah, is there
Wait in line like the rest of us.
Because I'm sure it's only a matter of time before you stress her out about something. So I want to be on that
I'm
list of
positive
things
it's
that
already
she,
happened.
Hey,
I'm genuinely
something
sure.
Dean is contributing to. I think the amount that you stress her out went from like 100%, maybe down to 50%, because Dean's stressing her out the rest of the time.
100%.
So he's,
Oh,
he's
there you
helping in
go.
that.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Okay.
There's the bright side.
Well, that's. I got you. Well, that's great. I thought where you were going with that was like there can be, and props to your wife for that. There could be also an unhealthy way of like wanting to bless other people, where like
I think there
now
can.
you're trying to like. You care what they think about you. You're trying to like buy their affection, things
Oh,
like that.
sure.
So,
Totally.
so when
And
we
that's
say
not,
that,
that's not her. She's not.
Totally.
She's not doing that to get anything back. I was using that as a positive. I think
That's
to
awesome.
say that, you know, where Kevin's going to drive to it. The whole base layer of this is: are you going to choose stuff? Like, are you going to put your own kind of personal gratification first, or are you going to put others first? And are you going to prioritize other people first, have that kind of mindset? My wife's really good at it, and I'm not generally default that good at it. So
Yeah.
I think that's where I was kind of driving at with that one.
Yeah. Well, that's great. But I think a caveat to mention, though, is like just because we should put our focus on other people, like that doesn't mean that we're relying on other people to fulfill us in the way that only God can.
Absolutely,
Like
yeah.
you shouldn't move
Okay,
from
yeah,
like,
sure.
oh, I'll just buy anything to I'll just spend time with somebody. It's like, no, okay, you need to first and foremost put the Lord in that place and then orient the rest of the stuff.
Yeah.
Well, and I think if you apply the, seek first the kingdom mentality, right?
Yeah.
Like,
The
which
Beatitudes.
which I think probably we've already talked about Matthew 6. Is that one Matthew 6 as well? Seek first the kingdom. I think if you've got that mindset when you're going after, for example, like Alyssa buying that gift for that friend of hers, she was just hoping that it would really bless her and make her smile. And I think that's a genuine, and she was blessed by it. And I think that's a reflection of her. I think that's a reflection of the light of Jesus in her life, is the fact that she has that generosity that she wants to give. Like that's just her mindset. Granted, you can be, like you say, too far towards seeking that affirmation from someone else, that becomes the goal. I think it matters what the goal is. It matters what the motivation is.
That's
but
great.
if you apply that, kingdom first mentality, then you kind of get yourself out of a lot of jams either way, whether you're giving yourself too much or you're giving someone else too much in order to get gratification.
Yep.
Can I
Can't
build
give
a
God too
really
much.
Can I build a really great like segue?
I
here?
wish that you would.
So when we're talking about like really thinking about worrying about what other people are thinking about us, really seeking other people's approval, some people will get so spun up on that it literally spirals them into like anxiety, like into some crazy stuff. Here's the cool segue. The next subsection or like subtitle inside of Luke chapter 12, right after verse 21. Do you want to guess the heading?
I cheated. Go ahead, James.
The literal heading for this, it says, "Do not be anxious."
Yeah.
And it then goes into saying, and then there's obviously
Thank goodness
this is-
Jesus wrote that heading. No, I'm just
right?
kidding.
Yeah, thank you, Jesus. No,
Well, this
but
is actually a good point here. Actually, I'm gonna dial into that just for
Yeah.
a second.
Yeah.
Your headings in your Bible not inspired.
Nope.
right.
Nope. Now there are chapters.
Yeah, and neither is the way that it's delineated as far as
Verses.
chapters and verse goes.
Yeah.
The books are
Yeah.
inspired,
But they used to be scrolls.
delineation.
Anyways, yeah.
right?
Right.
All that to say, when you're reading your Bible, the headings are good, but don't take
Yeah.
that as that's not the inspired word of God.
Sure. Well, the theme, which we'll get into, it's right in the first verse after this heading, right? It says, "And he said to his disciples, therefore I tell you, do not be anxious about your life, what you will eat, nor about your body, what you will put on. For life is more than food, and the body more than clothing. Consider the ravens, they neither sow nor reap, they have neither storehouse nor barn."
Storehouse again.
There it is.
It's all connected.
"And yet God feeds them. Of how much more value are you than the birds? And which of you, by being anxious, can add a single hour to his span of life?"
Dude,
The end.
the context of that opens that up.
Thanks for joining us here at the sermon room.
Yeah,
Wait,
dude, the
what a
context of that
word.
like totally opens up that passage about don't being anxious, because it's like he just told everybody like don't store up for yourselves, and
Right.
people's next thought is like, well, what am I going to do if something bad happens to me? Like I don't have that to lean on, and he's like, bam, don't. Dude, that's
Savage.
it's almost
Don't
like
be
he's the best
anxious.
teacher of all time or
Don't
something.
worry about all that stuff, man. Like, how much more value do you have? And how, like, is this adding to your life to be worried about the car that you drive, the school that your kids go to? Does it add, does it add anything? Does it add value to your life to be worried about these things?
Right.
Yeah, you got Marie
Man,
Kondo that
what-
thing. Get rid of it. Does
what
not
a
spark
word.
joy.
I think there's a line between Well, let me ask you this: do
Yeah.
you think I don't want to project my own opinion on
No,
this?
no, no, yeah,
Do you
yeah.
think there's a line between healthy concern
Sure.
and unhealthy, unproductive, ungodly worry?
Can you say sorry one more time?
Do you think there's a line between healthy concern
Mm-hmm.
and unhealthy, ungodly, unbiblical worry and anxiety?
I think
Yes.
there is. Yeah.
Because the reason I think that is because as you're
Yeah,
as
yeah,
you're
yeah.
talking about that,
Yeah.
you shouldn't be anxious or worry as in stress hardcore
Yeah,
over
yeah.
But you also shouldn't be like, oh, it's gonna work out. It's gonna
Right.
happen.
There also shouldn't be a lackadaisical.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
should
yeah, yeah,
care
yeah.
about where your kid goes to school,
Yeah.
right?
But you shouldn't be like
It should not be eating you from the inside out. It
Yeah.
should not be robbing your joy. It should not be, or not robbing your joy, but clouding
Yeah.
the
That's a good-
joy.
yeah, good adjective.
It shouldn't be.
right.
It shouldn't be that.
Yeah. I think
there's a
that,
line there. I think
when
that's
you talk
important.
about healthy concern, I think that's folded into what wisdom and discernment looks like. Like
Right.
you're taking things into account. You're like looking at options. You're reviewing things, thinking about it. What's the
You're doing
wisest
your due
choice?
diligence.
Yeah, you can come
in-
to a fork in the road
right.
and you can think to yourself, what's the wisest choice here? I'm going to think this through. You should not sit down and start rocking in the fetal position at the fork in the road. It's about, I hope I picked the right one. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so all that to say, I don't want anyone going away like beating themselves up because they're like, oh man, like I've been thinking all day about where my kid should go to school. For example, to use your example.
Yeah.
Oh, no, think about where your kid should go to school.
Yeah.
If that is becoming what is ruling your life and that's becoming, that's getting in the way of your journey of discipleship, it's getting in the way of your Christian walk, it's getting in the way of, it's changing who you are, your circumstances are defining you. At that point, that is when it becomes a concern. And I agree with the statement that I think discernment and wisdom is important to know when you've crossed the boundary from a healthy level of concern into the type of worry and anxiety that the Bible is clear that we should be putting away from us.
Well, let me jump in. So later
Yeah, commended not
later
to be,
in
actually.
this breakdown, verse 30, Jesus continues to say, "For all the nations of the world seek after these things, food, clothing, blah blah blah, and your Father knows that you need them." Right. So when we're talking about like good schooling, like clothes, houses over, roof over your head, food, right? God knows that you need those things. Instead, and this is where we get into what you were saying earlier about this, right? Instead, seek His kingdom, and these things will be added to you.
Boom.
Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Isn't that great?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, keep going. So good.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Oh,
go ahead.
sell your possessions and give to the needy. Provide yourselves with money bags that do not grow old, with a treasure in the heavens that does not fail, where no thief approaches and no moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Bro, it's all linked. It's all connected. That's crazy.
It's good stuff, man. And you get into the culture has made it so weird to talk about anxiety and
Yeah, that's true.
worry because here's the thing, I don't know enough about this topic to make a declaration here that's going to make any kind of sense other than to say I personally am exploring the idea that I think there's such a difference that comes down to something that is clinical and that is a physiological problem versus something that is a spiritual problem. And
Yeah,
something
sure.
that is that you can deal with by relying on God through it. I think there's a
Yeah.
difference there, and I think it's important to understand that because I think we can burden ourselves with so much even more worry that we are experiencing worry, and it becomes this weird feedback loop because we're
Oh,
like,
sure.
I'm experiencing this anxiety and this worry,
Yeah.
and you end up kind of getting to the place where you're in this weird loop over and
just
over again.
spinning.
And so grace is there. Grace is afforded to you. Like, yes, there are going to be times where in your human nature you will, you'll apply worry
Yeah.
improperly, and you'll miss the kingdom first mentality, and you have to have grace for yourself in that situation, and then reorient, refocus. And that's a lifelong journey. It's part of the whole sanctification thing.
Well, let me kind of bring us all the way back here to Pastor Kevin's message. He says, "What defense have you put in place for yourself and family to protect yourselves from the lie of materialism?" And he goes into this one, and this is kind of what his bottom line in his message was community. It says, "Studies will show that as materialism has increased, community and relationship has decreased.
Mm-hmm.
And so really the question you should be asking is, time is money. I'm sure you've heard that saying before. Time is money versus time is connection. And that was kind of his ending somewhere in there, his ending point.
Yeah.
Time versus money versus time versus connection. So all that to say, this last weekend we did a huge push for teams and groups.
Yeah.
And there's no short of them here at the church. There's lots of places to get involved, lots of things to do. So definitely make sure that you do that. If you feel like you're feeling God is calling you to a certain like ministry, or if you feel like he's pulling you a certain way, please get involved.
And I'll clarify that and say that he
Yeah.
is calling you. He is calling you.
yeah,
Like
sure.
it's not an if he's calling you. It is you are called to
Yeah.
be part of
He
community.
created for community.
Yeah,
and
to be a part of community
yeah.
and to serve his kingdom some way, somehow, and to apply generosity. Those are biblical commands.
Yeah.
And so I'd say it's not about whether or not you should at this point. It's about where you're going to do it.
Yeah, that's fair.
And, you know, if you need to pray about that, sure. But you don't got to pray about whether or not you got to do it.
Yeah.
You just got to
Where you get
just gotta
plugged in,
figure out.
not when. Or
Yeah.
if,
It's
Exactly.
a good clarification. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah. I didn't want to take away, by the way. I should have asked. Did you guys have any other last minute thoughts?
I had the thing about Genesis 3 that
Oh,
I
dude.
thought was really interesting.
Yes. Let's go there.
Yeah.
I'm totally sorry.
No, you're good.
Space
no,
on it.
it
Take us back.
happens, you know. Take you back. Let's go back to the beginning,
Ooh.
depending on your
before
translation
the
of 7 days. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh my gosh. Nice.
It actually doesn't relate to that at all. I don't know why I said that. Just try to stir the pot, I guess. To new earthers and old earthers, I don't know why I did that.
Make it a little spicy.
Okay, so,
Nice.
dude, I'm blown away. Okay, I'm trying to remember how Pastor Kevin like brought this point into the message. He was talking about how the enemy
He
spoke to Eve in the garden.
What-
Do you remember the exact
Yeah,
time?
so the way that I remember, I think it was in Genesis chapter 2, is he was talking about, like, you can
Oh.
even consider the fruit to be a thing
Yep,
because it was something that you could have, that you could hold. It was a possession that you could obtain.
that's
And
what
that's,
it
I
was.
think, the
That's what
connection.
it was. He said, if you have
Yeah.
this thing, then you will be
Like God.
like God. You will get what you want if you have this thing.
Yes.
That's what the Titan was. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I got you.
Dude, it's so sneaky the way that the enemy works though, because like if you notice, like what's the first thing that he goes after about God's character? Because like he's trying to undercut God, right?
Yeah,
Look at
right.
what he says. He says, chapter 3, verse 1, this is the serpent.
Mm-hmm.
Did God actually say you shall not eat of any tree in the garden?
Mm-hmm.
He's like directly going after God's generosity. Like directly going after God's generosity. He's making Eve focus on what she was not given as opposed to what she was given. Because when she replies like,
That's an
we
interesting
may
take.
eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but God said, you shall not eat of the fruit of the tree. So the one, he's trying to bring her focus to the one that she doesn't have by saying like, did he say that you can't eat any of the fruit? Like, I just think that's so interesting how
That
that's
is an
the
interesting
first
take.
thing that he goes after is God's generosity.
I never thought about
he
it like
starts
that.
to have her thinking like, why did God hold back from you? Why did God not give you everything? Why was he not fully generous to you by giving you all like interesting how he went for that first thing.
Yeah, I've never thought about it like that before. I always read that as like the enemy going after the authority of God to say, what did he say? That's how I always thought about it. I never saw it that way. It's an
Yeah.
interesting take.
Yeah, and to add the third perspective to that,
Yeah.
the way that I had always, or the thing that I camped on in that whole little passage is the idea that he doesn't go after it of like, nah, he didn't say that. He said this. No, he asks the question. Like it's a little leading manipulative thing. It's a
Did he
seed
really?
of doubt. Yeah. Did he really say that? It's not like he didn't say that. He said this. It's not like a deliberate automatic kind of gaslighting thing,
Yeah.
right? To use that term
Yeah.
today. It's like a slow, seed of manipulation to make you think, oh, did he? I don't know, did he? And so that's what I'd always camped on. I'd never caught on to the idea that it's kind of questioning his. I'd always thought about it as questioning his credibility. I'd never thought about it as questioning his generosity. And that's an interesting take. I like that.
Okay, every time I've read this story, I've always thought to myself, I mean, obviously, like, if you could play the author, right? Pick up the pen, rewrite the story.
Yeah.
In my head, I'm like, why didn't she just go, I don't know, let's go ask him? Like, That would have solved so many problems.
She wasn't in community with God.
Oh my God.
It's all linked.
She wasn't in communion.
Yeah.
Hey,
we know
God,
we know
the,
Adam was there, but
the
yeah.
snake just asked a really good question. Go ahead and ask him
Can
the
you?
question.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
great
Tell him what
question.
you said. Did you really tell him? Why didn't she just be like, I don't know.
Did you
go
say
ask
that?
him.
Oh,
Yeah.
see, he cleared it up for us. There you are, Mr. Snake or Mr. Serpent or whatever.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
just pick up the pen, rewrite it, man. Like, man,
Yeah.
why didn't you just as easily could have been like, actually, you know, I
Yeah.
don't remember. Let's go ask. And
Yep.
I think I think the part of the mistake that we make in today's culture where we go, hey, what did God really say? And we don't even consult the word. We just go, oh, I don't know. And we choose. We just make a decision.
All roads lead home.
And
man.
then we answer with our own words, and we do like Eve does, where she adds like, "Neither shall you touch it." And she's like just making up stuff now. And
Yeah.
it's like, well, yeah, that was not what he
oh,
commanded
that's
you.
true. I hadn't caught that either.
Did you actually not?
No.
No, she made that up, bro.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude.
We're all over that. That
You
was
could read
really early
Genesis
on to
1
be all
through
over the
3.
map. I'm telling you.
yeah.
Like that's
Things went
really
downhill
early
fast.
on to be confused.
Yeah.
Like it was so simple back then.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they didn't
Wow.
have a sinful nature at this point in time, so it was even easier. In some ways easier for them to respond because they didn't have a sinful nature yet because they hadn't sinned.
Well,
Didn't
but
have
they
so
clearly had the
interesting.
propensity to sin.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Anyway, we're off on a completely
No,
different
this
track.
I
Dude,
just was an
Genesis 1
interesting
through 3.
tangent.
You could
know?
read Genesis 1 through 3 for like an entire year, and something new would come out like every time. Dude, it's crazy.
Well, there's a lot crammed into that little
Yeah.
Yes, there is.
corner of scripture there at the front end.
Yeah.
And John. Genesis and John will keep you busy for your life.
Really, any of it?
Yeah.
Hey, pick a book.
Oh my gosh.
Just
Well,
go through it.
Also,
Yeah.
on an encouraging note, I had somebody over at my house. How are we doing on time? We're probably
We
blowing.
should probably come into land. We're about an hour and 5 minutes.
All right.
Ooh, land the plane.
All right. So I had somebody over at my house last night, and this person's super dear to me, and I had them over for dinner. They came over, and he was telling me.
Was it you? It wasn't me.
No, it wasn't me.
Oh, okay.
I've never been invited for dinner for whatever that's worth.
He was telling me, he goes, you know, I started reading the Bible at the beginning of this year. Grew up Mormon, and was like,
boy, lot to unpack.
Yeah, I know. Grew up Mormon, and was like, you know, I started reading the Bible this year because they just don't teach it in the Mormon church, and I'm learning so much about the character of God.
Yeah.
He's like, I understand now, and since, by the way, probably it's an awesome thing. He gave his life to the Lord.
Praise God.
And
Mormons are
and
not
he's like,
Christian,
I'm learning so much about the character of God and Jesus. And he came over with just all the questions. He was like, "What
yeah.
about this? What about this?" And he's like, "What I'm finding now is that I'm finding such a deep, profound love for the Word of God that like I'm seeing things and I'm understanding connection points now. As you're like, it all connects, right?
Yeah.
He's there now for the first time. Like we've been there. And it was just so cool seeing his excitement over like, oh,
Yeah.
dude, this all connects.
Dude, yeah, the
It's
Bible
so
Project
cool.
calls them like hyperlinks to each other.
Yeah.
Like if you could, it's almost like there's like, it's blue and underlined in certain parts, and if you could click the Bible, it would take you to like somewhere else, and it
Yeah.
like talks about it. Like
Well,
it's crazy.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the benefit of it, like a concordance or something.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there's an image where someone did all the cross references.
Oh, dude, that thing looks
I've
crazy.
seen it. Yeah,
it's
yeah.
wild
I have
to
seen
see
that.
how many different references there
Yeah.
are just all over scripture. I've always wanted to do, I've had this like video idea that maybe one day that we'll try and do, but this idea of going through scripture with the idea of like highlighting those cross references, but doing it like, you know, in those movies where they're connecting, like, you know, they're investigating a murder and they're like, well, this is linked to this, and then this is linked to that.
That
and
red
then
yarn?
That is like, yeah.
Bro, let's
imagine doing it
go.
like, imagine doing it in this room that we're in right now and just connecting like this connects to here, and then we're over here, and then this connects to here, and then you can tie
I would
this
need to
in
be a lot
with
smarter.
this over here. Oh yeah, I'm not intelligent enough.
Yeah, I would have to be way smarter than I am right
we
now.
should do that, dude.
Doesn't
That
that sound
sounds
great?
sick.
But that would be a way of like walking through some of the Bible, especially when you get into stuff like prophecy. You talk about Bible
Yeah.
prophecy,
Oh,
like
yeah.
that
Yeah.
would be a real cool way of literally,
Yeah.
connecting the dots.
Dude, you just like print the whole Bible somehow, and you like fill up this room with it.
I don't think we'll do that.
Is that what you're talking about?
All that to say-
And then I'll just take the pages out
When
of my
this
Bible.
person
I'm just
I mean,
kidding.
we can flesh out the idea
Okay.
outside of the podcast.
I'm
When
already-
this person
my
came
mind's
over
going.
last night,
Oh yeah.
it was the point that he was so inspired by what he was reading that he found himself going, I need community. I need to go get with somebody else, as Pastor Kevin was saying. Go and find some, go hang at
Yeah.
Bible studies, go get in a group. He called me and was like, hey, dude, I honestly, they're family of ours. And so they actually called us and they didn't even ask us, like, hey, is it okay? They invited themselves over.
Like,
They
we're on the
literally
way.
called them, or they were like, hey, we're getting you dinner.
5
We're
minutes
coming
out.
over. Yeah. And so I was like, oh.
At least they're getting you dinner. That was
Okay.
nice.
Yeah, they're like, hey, we'll buy you dinner, but we have a bunch of questions about the Bible and about church, and we just want to come and sit with you. And I was like, okay. I was helping Erica in her classroom, so I was like, well, I guess we gotta leave, you know?
Going home.
Yeah, but and it ended up being a really, really neat time. But again, all that to say, go and get in community. Go and find
Yeah.
somebody, like get in a group, join a team, do something. Don't.
We got
don't
awesome
be-
groups. We have a bunch of those home groups that we
That
call
we do.
Cove groups.
We have
starting
Cove
up.
groups, meet in people's homes all over Modesto, Riverbank, Salida, Ripon. I
You're on
want to
your
say
own.
there's
I'm
one
just
in
kidding.
Manteca. Even.
Is there really?
Oh, snap.
So we have
wow.
we
That's
have
awesome.
groups literally all over the place.
That's great.
So make sure you're involved in one of those, or we have
Yeah.
marriage groups. Like if you're specifically wanting to be in a group with your spouse, work on marriage.
Yeah.
we have marriage groups. We have men's groups that they're
Yep.
action heroes. They go
Mm-hmm.
caving and stuff.
Yeah, spelunking, I think is the
yes.
word.
Okay. Whatever.
Yeah.
Either way, they go like
Yeah.
into caves and they camp and stuff. Like
That's
it's-
cool.
They're cool dudes. And then
Yeah.
there's a women's ministry. They play dice game all the time called Bunko. I don't know if
Bunko?
you've heard
Yep,
of this.
I have.
Never played.
And that's an adventure too. Like,
oh, that in itself, yeah.
yeah,
Yes,
I'm
it
more
is.
scared of an intense bunko game than going into a cave, dude. They're the real heroes.
About to get kicked in the shin by an old lady. You know what I'm saying?
I have no idea how Bunko works, but anyway, all that to say, we've got groups
Yes.
all over the place here, and that's how valuable we think they are.
Yeah.
So please get into a group. Like, find your people.
Yeah.
Find your
Yeah.
people.
Can I
because-
make one more shameless plug?
Is it going to be for the worship team?
No,
Worship
no,
team is a
no,
group.
actually
You
not.
could call the worship team a group.
Although yes, if you feel like you have a
From the
gifting
worship
for
team, play an
like a
instrument.
musical gift, please come and talk to us or fill out a serve card. What I was gonna say though was that even tonight we have prayer night, our
Oh,
first
yep.
one of the season.
So you did both.
I did both. Yeah,
Twofer.
yeah, twofer.
Got it.
You gave me the platform, so I took it.
Yeah, dude, prayer night, man.
Prayer night's
prayer and
happening
worship night, yeah.
Tonight, 7 p.m. Childcare is provided. So for those of y'all that are
Holla.
trying to get some time away from the kiddos and into some prayer, please come. There's going to be worship.
Yeah.
It's going to be a great time. So, yeah. That's
Yeah,
my
we'd love to
shameless
see you
plug.
here for that.
Nice.
As always, if there's a way that we can get you connected here, what we're trying to drive towards is more and better disciples.
That's the one.
So we want to reach people and then raise them to become authentic followers of Jesus, and that's the journey.
yeah.
That
Nice.
it's the journey that we're on. It's
Yeah.
the journey that we would love to see you on with us, and we'll walk with you through it. So if there's any way that Shelter Cove can help be a part of that, let us know. We're here for you.
Absolutely.
We love you.
Right on.
James's phone number too. I had to.
No, hey, we should give them Robert's phone
right.
number so that way he
Yeah.
has something to do when he's sitting
Robert,
behind.
did we
Oh
ever
my gosh.
did we ever find out what airline has that really cool apartment in the plane?
Never. I couldn't find it.
He gave up.
Are you serious? If I Google it right now, the podcast is
I
about to
hope
end.
not.
And if in 30 seconds I can find this airline,
What's the name of the home improvement neighbor?
Uh,
What's the name of the guy?
flight.
No, man. I'm bad at this.
No, you're
Daniel's
good at it.
gone. I'm not used to it.
It's Etihad.
Sorry.
No way.
I just found it. I just
No
looked
way.
I literally, man, I Googled. What did I Google? I Googled
Because you're on a computer.
flight.
He's on an iPad.
It's an iPad. First of
iPad,
all,
sorry.
that was an impulse buy when I was feeling particularly low one night.
Sorry.
Just
We're
kidding.
in too deep. We're in
I
too
literally
deep.
typed in flight, the residence. Etihad, A380.
Also,
Okay.
man.
also,
sorry.
also the name of the neighbor is Wilson Jr.
Bro.
Wilson Jr. So nice. You gotta say it twice.
Yeah, look, it's, I
that
don't know if
Moto.
you guys can see this on camera, but
Oh,
if not,
that's
zoom in later or something.
stellar.
But it's
Yeah.
And that's the guy that we talked about that does the That, he just does it so well.
I
don't even know what
practice,
that
man.
is.
I don't know if
Practice.
that's actually him, but that's his name, Wilson
Oh
Jr.
my gosh, that's
Okay.
so good, dude. Man.
Here's
Oh, what am I?
a
I feel
community
like I
of
should be
people
looking up
currently on their
something.
phones.
I don't know.
This is a
Yeah.
great
I was
podcast,
just trying
yeah.
to figure it out.
Okay,
This
well,
podcast called Man Looks Things Up on a Phone. Robert, we love you, man.
We love you, dude.
We still
We do.
love you.
thanks for being
We do
back
love
here and
you.
filling in while
Yes,
Daniel's
just
been
as
out.
well, you don't have to earn it.
Yeah. Couldn't earn it. Don't deserve it. It's like just like the Rick was
Corey
just
Asbury.
like the song.
Oh gosh. Well, hey, we love you guys. Thanks for tuning in and dealing with our shenanigans. We'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.